Let's talk about now something else here, which has been very, very interesting. It's happened a lot. It's the rise of something called deepfakes. It's changing how we consume media and even process information. A lot of these are artificially intelligent generated videos and audio recordings, which are becoming more and more sophisticated. They're even used to spread disinformation, commit fraud, and even harass individuals. But where does South African law stand on this? And I wanted to highlight this video that we're showing on air right now. This is a video that I was sent by somebody saying that that is me. Now, that is a bulletin that I had done on the Newzroom Afrika set, but none of those words were ever uttered by me. That is a deep fake. Now, we've decided to do away with the audio because we're not trying to promote anything that is being said there. And we want to make that very, very clear that in no way does Newzroom Afrika or myself, Arabile, attest to ever having been part of anything that you're seeing on air right now. But that is the state of deep fakes. They've used my actual likeness, appearance, mannerisms, and even my voice, if you were to hear the audio. Dr. Nomalanga Mashinini, legal scholar and author of Deepfakes and South African Law, Remedies on Paper and Gaps in Practice, has been exploring this issue. She joins us now in studio for the discussion. I was freaked out. I saw that and I just thought, it's me. But I've never had that conversation. I've never said the words that were uttered out of that deep fake. How did we get here? I thought AI was supposed to be helpful.
See, if we go back in time, we need to look back at how social media began.
Yeah.
Because it was framed as it's all about being social. It's all about sharing experiences with your network, reconnecting with people. But what it was really driving was this way of creating a public repository of your images publicly available to anyone to use and exploit. And if you think about the way artificial intelligence works, it requires data in the form of images, voices, likeness, in order to run, train, and produce this kind of media.
Goodness me. But it just feels like it's getting better and better. Because if you were to take a look at that video again, my likeness in its totality, including the state of my voice, the calmness or the non-calmness, the loud, the soft, just the tone is almost identical. And it just keeps on getting better and better. So this is not going away.
It's not going away. And remember, as someone who sits here as a news anchor, it's much easier to get a lot of videos from what you've presented before, curate that and combine that to create a crisp video with your voice, with your likeness that is so convincing that the ordinary person may not be able to see it.
So what do we do? How do we... I can't say fix it because it's hard to say we're going to fix it because there'll always be nefarious actors. But how do we make people aware and not just aware, but also being able to fight back? I mean, in a situation like this, what was I supposed to do? Should I have gone to a regulator? Should I have gone to that person and, you know, sort of fought back in a way?
Well, the first obstacle here is how would you find the person who did it if they posted anonymously on social media, for instance, or on some website? Right, and the first step usually is to preserve the evidence. So gather the video, gather the information that you need about what is the URL where this is coming from, which website, what is the handle of the person who posted it on whatever social media platform. Because once you've preserved that evidence, then you can start the process of requesting removal. Because it doesn't help if you request takedown and removal without preserving evidence, because how will you trace it back to the person who did it? So there are various ways in which South African law provides mechanisms that we can use to uncover who it is. It may be difficult, it may be costly, it may take time, but it is possible. For instance, one of the things that you can actually request through an order of either the High Court, an interdict, or if you're going through the Protection from Harassment Act, you can actually go for the Magistrates Court, where you can get an order to request the social media platform where this has come up to actually reveal the identity of the person who posted it initially. Right, and so there are certain steps that you can take. You can also request deletion of the information. One of the simplest ways is to go to the social media platform where it was initially posted and request that it's removed. But of course, you're going to play a whack-a-mole game because people screenshot and screen record and repost it on different platforms, right? And so you're going to keep moving between social media platforms trying to remove this information. But although it is quite a tricky situation to navigate, it is possible to remove. We have various laws that do this. And if you think about the branches of government, which are legislature, executive, and you've got the judiciary as well. You know, the legislature, for the most part, has done its work. We've got various legislation. The Electoral Act, the Protection of Personal Information Act, we've got the Cyber Crimes Act, we've got the Films and Publications Act and its amendments that provide avenues for us to explore, to remedy and seek remedy in court or through the South African police in order to vindicate ourselves from such deepfakes.
It's absolutely incredible and doing this. And I think it's that legislation that I then get very interested in and wonder about its enforcement. You know, and because that's always then the next part, right? Yeah. Because you can have the greatest piece of legislation, but if it's not enforced correctly, people just continue to just break the law anyway.
That's true, and this is where the other branches of government come in, the judiciary and the executive. So under the executive, this is where you find government departments, public service, and more specifically the South African Police Service, who are tasked with implementing the laws that prohibit the publication of such deepfakes. And so sometimes the challenges that we see with the SAPS have to do with knowledge and skill of how do you even identify whether this is a deepfake, or their ability to gather the correct evidence in order to assist with the prosecution process. Because oftentimes what you find is if you come in to the South African Police Service and you lay a complaint, if you don't know who you're complaining against, that is the first big obstacle that the SAPS has to overcome, right? So this is where you see these challenges in enforcement. But sometimes also you see challenges in enforcement if you're going for, say, a direct civil claim through the High Court, if you want to maybe get an interdict to stop the person from posting or remove the content of social media, for instance. This is where often you find that there's friction in our law, because as much as our courts are able to direct the removal or prevention or in order to prevent the publication of such information, you know, sometimes you find that if your matter has already blown up on social media, it is a little too late to request
100%.
That removal. But one thing that I think the South African community also needs to understand is that if you are tagged or you repost that kind of information, such as deepfakes, whether it's text deepfakes, audio, video, photograph, you can also be held liable, even though you are not the person who originally created the deepfake.
Yeah, that's the scary part here.
Yeah.
That's the absolutely scary part. I mean, it looks from that video that I'm looking to ultimately scam people. That's what it really does look like. And it's not just with me. There's actually somebody else that follows on that one, and a very prominent CEO, really. And that's the fear, is that it will create legitimate sources when it comes to all of this. How much, I'm not going to say blame, but accountability or responsibility should we be placing on social media platforms themselves to help, at the very least, in identifying the sources of this and at best try to remove them? Because sometimes it's done for satirical purposes, which is funny, and that seemingly is okay. But in other instances, it could be much like that one and really harmful.
So often when it's done for satirical purposes, parody or jest or even educational purposes, what you'll find, as in the past Jordan Peele has done, was to show a video of himself looking like President Obama, but he disclosed that this is an educational video about just how dangerous deepfakes are. So that is something that is justifiable in our law as well, because you're doing it for that kind of a freedom of expression related activity. But when you're dealing with the malicious type, the fraudulent type, the type that misleads, causes prejudice or harms, whether economic, social, psychological, or whatever form of harm, then you're coming within the remit of the law, you know, and you could be liable for either a crime or a civil remedy. So social media platform liability is quite a tricky one.
Yeah, I can imagine so.
Because, you know, originally when social media started, the understanding was a lot along the lines of you can't really hold these companies liable for stuff that their users post online. And so the user remains the primary person that you would be going against as a defendant in such an instance. But there are ways to compel social media platforms to collaborate with you in order to seek remedy. We've recently seen the similar thing with the digital law company a few weeks back, where they had interdicted Meta to actually remove infringing child sexual abuse material on WhatsApp and Instagram. And so it is possible to get them to do it. However, of course, they delayed. And this is why they almost faced contempt of court. And at the threat of contempt, that's when they decided to cooperate. Right. Sure. So what we need the legislature to do to tighten existing laws is to actually set specific timeframes within which social media platforms should comply with requests for takedown and requests for identification. I mean, even under Films and Publications Act, for instance, we already have the provisions that allow the Films and Publications Board and the South African Police Service to request identification to be revealed by whatever social media platform or internet service provider that is actually hosting that kind of information. So if we can also tighten our laws by requiring the need for social media platforms to, in the first instance, detect that media that has been uploaded is fake, right? Because you've got information and track record of media that shows you in the background that this is actually false, this is doctored, this has been edited. And social media platforms, because they use AI to do content moderation, they are actually able to detect that what is about to appear to the public is a deepfake. And so we should request or enforce that they should always flag content like that as deepfakes.
Nomalanga, let's just get a final word just to your advice for anybody caught in a situation like this, I guess including myself, really.
So South African law, the beauty of it is that it's a mixed system, mixed legal system. You've got various avenues, and depending on the context, you can either go to the police to have the matter reported, or you can go to court for a civil claim. But first things first, preserve the evidence. Take screenshots of timestamps, URLs, handles, and then after that start removing takedown. Even under Section 24 of the POPIA, for instance, you can request deletion of information that's unlawfully obtained or content that is incorrect or inaccurate about your personal information. So those are certain steps you can take. You can lay a charge at the South African Police Service in terms of Cybercrimes Act as well.
Wow. It's absolutely incredible because artificial intelligence can be used for such great uses, but then you have situations like this which could also be at play.
Unfortunately.
Thank you so much for the time. Really, really appreciate it. Also appreciate you coming into studio as well for sharing in this conversation. It is great having people in studio with you. Dr. Nomalanga Mashinini is legal scholar and author of Deepfakes and South African Law, the Remedies on Paper, Gaps in Practice. So talking about deepfakes and artificial intelligence.